What's up, everyone? Welcome to what I think will be the final tournament tactics of the 2023/2024 season. We're taking a look at conference championship round football, 2-game slate. 4 teams enter, 2 teams leave. Let's fucking go. Now, we're going to break this thing down, take a look at the slate. Obviously, not a ton of options, but I love a 2-gamer. I love a 2-game slate. A lot of interesting strategies to employ. And here with me to break it down, as usual, the Dream Team. Multi-time Millie Maker winner and general nice guy, BobbyWow. What's up, my man?
Hey.
And, of course, the author of Winning the $1 Million Game, Secrets of the DraftKings Millie Maker Contest, available on Amazon or in booksellers nationwide. Author of The Shark Lab and Ohio State fan extraordinaire, Burns 273, aka The Shark Lab. What's up, my man?
Hey, guys. How's it going?
All right. Yeah, I'm excited. Great games coming up. We were just debating who's going to win, who's going to the final. Everybody's got flaws. Everybody's got good teams and everything like that. And we've also done a lot of back testing of these 2-game slates and what wins or some strategies to employ. So I'm really excited to break it all down. And there's a few different ways I want to get in. We can get deep in 2 games, guys. Dive in deep. There are a couple of injury situations, though, I want to address before we even dive too heavily into the breakdown. A couple of injury ones. So, I mean, Pacheco is rolling a Q tag. Non-participant in practice of Freche, limited session on Friday for Pacheco. So Pacheco's a really important piece on this slate. I would say he's the second best running back on paper if he's just healthy. Do we think there's any risk that Pacheco doesn't play here?
I don't. I think he's going to play. He's said as much. Everyone said as much. I think we see him play. The one risk maybe is the re-injury risk more than anything else. But I think Pacheco suits up, no doubt about it.
Toe ankle injury, so some lower leg stuff going on there. The other big one is, of course, Deebo Samuel and the shoulder, and I do think there is cause for concern. I'm just going to look at the latest here. You know, I checked this yesterday, and it was nothing new. Limited at practice. Here's the thing. These guys, if they're, you know, it's the playoffs. You play unless you're like dead, basically. But that doesn't mean you can truly play and be healthy. So it's hard to trust even an active injured player in the playoffs, especially in, you know, this game. Do we have any what are your guys feeling on Deebo Samuel? And I mean, the Q tag is going to scare a lot of people off of the ownership, but at the flip side, you know, it probably should. I don't know what to do here. What do you think?
Hey, to me, he becomes a very interesting, maybe one of the most interesting tournament plays on the slate, because like you mentioned, this is an injury that he's not going to be 100%. I think he will play, but he's not going to be 100% healthy. And so that ownership is going to dip way down. Right now, it's in that 15 to 20% range, which is really low for a 2-game slate with Deebo Samuel on it. So I think that's kind of how you have to look at it. He is one of the few tournament pivot options, legitimate options you have on the slate. What about you, Burnsy?
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I think if he's a go, he's a great pivot. He makes this offense work. You know, they were talking about it on the game with San Francisco last week. You know, without him, they kind of sputtered. You know, it was a different offense with and without him. So Deebo's on the field, even if he is on the field and he's just a decoy, it actually makes all the players around him better. So I like him a lot, you know, as potentially a decoy to help Ayuk become a better wide receiver play this week. You know, he wasn't really that great of a play last week, even though he was a good play to start, but he didn't turn out to be a good play with Deebo going out. So it actually benefits Ayuk quite a bit if he's on the field.
Interesting. Interesting. Yeah, it's a really good matchup, obviously, for the passing game of Detroit. We'll get into those matchups here in a minute. Actually, I think that's where we'll go from here. I like to look at the power ranking sheet, which we have available over on the Sharp app. As you guys who have been watching this show all year already know, this helped us figure out, for example, that the Eagles were not going anywhere. And some of the teams that were legit in the Super Bowl or in the playoffs, and some who weren't. And one of the best things about this sheet is it gives us an idea of what offense to expect. And it's not looking too great for this Kansas City-Baltimore game in general in terms of passing yards. And I think that probably makes sense if you think about those two teams and how they play. But let's just go through this. So the power ranking sheet is showing that the Chiefs could run for around 100 yards, which is a good number. Ravens are projecting at 163, which again includes rushing yards that might be gained by Lamar Jackson, who actually generally, gets a good chunk of that. And then they have literally 3 different guys running the football. The passing yard numbers projections for both teams is pretty weak, which makes sense. Houston's had Chiefs have had a hard time this season really putting up monster numbers through the air because of the lack of playmakers and just, again, Kelsey not necessarily being himself and all but Rashee Rice not being able to catch a football. What a raw deal they handed Mahomes this year with that wide receiver crew. I mean, it is crazy.
Not great.
It is bananas. They brought back Mecole Hardman just because they didn't have enough guys to drop passes. They needed a guy to fumble at the end zone as well, who was already known to not be able to catch a pass. So, hey, we'll hand it to you. By the way, I just want to pause and talk about that fucking stupid rule of fumbling through the end zone. That is not an acceptable rule. Like, that must change, NFL. Enough is enough.
I love that rule. That is a great rule.
No, absolutely not, BobbyWow.
How about this?
No.
Don't fumble the ball near the end. Protect the football. That's part of football.
Why are you penalizing me a possession? I have the football at the goal line, and you're taking away my possession. It went out of bounds. Give me the
That's
ball
why
on the
you go
5-yard
100% of the way, not 99. That's what makes the goal line stand so special. That's another element to it.
Absolutely
take care of the ball.
No. I hate it. It's stupid. It's like the tuck rule. It's one of those dumb rules. Unacceptable. People didn't like it because it fucked the Cowboys a couple of years ago, and everybody likes when they lose. That's what's up. Remember when Des Bryant did it? No, that wasn't even that one. That was something else.
That was a different dumb rule.
Yeah, that was another stupid rule. Hate that rule. All right. Now let's take a look at the other game, though, is really interesting. So Detroit, which is an elite rushing team, only 109 rushing yard projection. 252 yards through the air, which is fine. San Francisco, 112. Again, that's a low number for San Francisco, 112 rushing yards. Usually their average is higher than that. 290 passing yards, and that's the big number for the weekend. So the Lions have effectively caused like the last 4 quarterbacks that have faced them to throw for between 350 and 400 plus yards. Let's look at the DVP number here. Defensive passing. Yeah, they're allowing on the season almost 35 yards more per game than average to opposing passing attacks, which is a lot. 22 yards below expectation to opposing running backs. San Francisco is just generally also very good versus the run and pretty average versus the pass. So that's what these numbers are showing. And Baltimore is particularly good versus the pass. They're a team you want to run on. So these are the important metrics. Take a look at Kansas City defensive passing number, one of the best in the game. So when you face Kansas City, it's hard to throw for a ton of yards. Dave hates the rule as much as he hates hard seltzer. I don't mind hard seltzer. It's not
I guess we'll never really. Yeah. What are his thoughts on hard seltzer?
Yeah, I don't know. It's hard to hate it because I don't mind hard. It's all right. It's not something I like a lot. In the summertime, it's fine. Summertime. Like a summertime drink during the day. Like a daytime, not at the bar. You can't be drinking that shit at the bar because everybody looks at you like you're carrying, like, it's worse than drinking Bud Light.
I don't know that anything's worse than that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Wait, I was just at a bar. All right, we share a story real quick. I was in Florida for a couple of days, and I go out to this bar, and they have happy hour, and it's like all this stuff, and I'm like, "What's the happy hour drink?" And it's Bud Lights. So I'm like, does that come in a Bud Light, like one of those glasses that say Bud Light on it? She's like, yeah. I was like, could you just put it in a Blue Moon glass? Why? I just do it. So I had it in a Blue Moon glass.
There you go.
Had to get the half price. Had to get the half price beer, even though not my favorite brand. All right, Debo, no injury designation. They just reported. So there we go. So that's a really important part of the slate. So I'm glad that just came in. Okay, let's take a look at ownerships, guys, and we're going to jump over to the domination station here. And actually, before I even do that, for those of you guys who've been watching the show, smash that like button. If you've been enjoying this all season long, if you enjoy the show, if you watched it, make sure you hit the like button. Of course, we appreciate that. And make sure you're subscribed to the channel because next year you're going to be like, I remember those guys. I enjoyed their show, but I can't remember where it was. I forgot about it. Those DFS Army guys. Well, smash that subscribe button. Be subscribed here to the DFS Army YouTube channel. You get all the notifications, all that good stuff. So it's really, really important. And we appreciate it if you do that and hit that like button. Let the algo know that you enjoy this breakdown. I've also shut off monetization for the live viewers. Whew. That's how we do it. I'm not trying to make people wait through commercials. But we will turn it on for the replay guys, because if not, go ahead.
One thing I want to ask before we get too deep into this, and I've been wanting to hear your thoughts, waiting all day for it. Matchups are important. Understanding those numbers, understanding what teams have done throughout the season. Does your feeling about matchups, or at least the weight of it, change when it comes down to the Final Four? Like in your experience, do we maybe weigh them a little bit less than we might during a regular season game? Because that feels like, maybe we need to lean into just these are the four best teams, and they could put up some numbers regardless.
Yes, 100%. There's only so much you need to care about, like matchup ratings or DVP. Even in the regular season, it's less relevant than we all think. We make it out to something more than it probably is. Right. So one of the best things to do is not give that too much weight. I think that the game totals are a much more important indicator, and the team totals of scoring potential for both teams relative to like DVP versus the pass versus the run. But it does give you a little bit of a taste of what the easiest pathways are for these teams. But does any of this mean that, the Chiefs can't throw for a lot of yardage in this game or just put up a big score? Of course not. And the same thing for the Ravens in their game. Like, they could put up a big number. It's, yeah, it doesn't matter that much. But, I think it's good to know, but you can't, especially on a 2-game slate. And I think that's the bigger component of it, BobbyWow.
Yes.
It's 2 games. It's only 2 games. I'm going to talk about this. You know what? The fact that I have the quarterbacks on screen is a perfect example of this. So I'm going to tell you guys a little bit about kind of like my thoughts here. I did a video yesterday for the DFS Army VIPs only. I didn't make it public. I put it in the VIP only. It was a strategy video, and what I wanted to really get into was more the math of how these numbers come together. But like when you're building a DraftKings lineup, there are only so many ways to build it today. There are only so many. We'd say, like, the way the math works, especially if you're playing Christian McCaffrey, you either play a Lamar or one of these other 3 guys that all cost about the same, right? So the big thought is like, okay, Lamar Jackson, and we'll get into this QB situation where it's really interesting to me that Lamar is currently projected 32%. You got Brock Purdy at 33%. And then the other 2 guys, 20 and 15%. So it's interesting because I don't really see. I think Lamar is the clear-cut best quarterback play on the slate. He's put up 39 the last 2 weeks in a row. None of the other quarterbacks have 39 points in their ceiling this week. I don't even think Mahomes has 39 points in his ceiling. They just haven't been able to do anything near that all year long with their group of wide receivers. So what is this scenario where it's better not like, what is the scenario where you shouldn't play Lamar? That's really what I was trying to get into in the breakdown, in the math of it, right? First of all, I don't really think Jared, I don't want to say that. I don't want to say you don't play these guys, but to me, Lamar and Brock Purdy are by far the better plays.
Wow.
By far. Now, I can't wait to hear what you have to say about it, BobbyWow, but it's very clear cut to me. Just like last week, I loved Lamar, and I think it was Lamar and Allen. I don't remember anymore, but I think it was Lamar and Josh Allen because they had that upside. Lamar came through, and it didn't matter. No one else mattered. But as far as this week goes, I think, Lamar has like that 35 to 40 point upside. They're not going to hold him back. It's not like we're saving him for the playoffs. He's going to be out there running around like a lunatic. It's actually hard to complete passes against Kansas City, which works to the benefit of Lamar, as crazy as that sounds. So then I started to think, what's that scenario where Brock Purdy outscores Lamar? Well, Brock Purdy hasn't surpassed 30 fantasy points all but once all season long. He doesn't have the same ceiling as what a Lamar does. So in order for Purdy to pass Lamar, it's not so much that Purdy just has to have a really good game and get a high 20s number, which is his sort of 15 percentile outcome. But Lamar has to have a mediocre game. I think that's more expectable. Lamar just, he didn't have a 40-pointer. He had a 20-pointer. Could happen. BobbyWow, you were a little skeptical when I said I thought those two guys. So talk to me about your take on this QB position.
I think Lamar is the clear best option. I think that's almost not even debatable. And ownership supports what you say about Lamar and Purdy. I think Purdy is probably the second safest, maybe, as far as I would go. And even then, I question it a little bit. To me, we've kind of seen the real Brock Purdy over the last couple of weeks.
You're a hater. I forgot. You're a Purdy hater.
Look, I am a Purdy hater. Okay.
That's what's going on here.
But the numbers tell a story here. The last couple of weeks, he faced the Ravens a couple of weeks ago, looked absolutely atrocious against one of the only real defenses he played toward the end of the regular season. Last week against the Packers, the lights were a little too bright. I think in a perfect world, Shanahan is running the football with Christian McCaffrey. The way Purdy was throwing the football for 57 minutes of that game was bad. And I know, I don't care how much Richard Sherman talks about that final drive and how beautiful and majestic it was. To me, there is cause for concern for Brock Purdy. So I don't know. I just think, yes, Lamar is the best play, but I do think tournament-wise, if I'm trying to get different, give me Goff or Mahomes' ceiling in a tougher matchup over Brock Purdy just because of the chances he has to fail. A chalky Purdy as the number one owned guy on a 2-game slate. There are so many reasons for me to move off that. That's all I'm saying.
I think it's really weird that he's projecting higher. I don't think that's how it will end up. I think that Lamar rightfully should be the highest owned. The reason Purdy is popping here, I don't think it's because it's just a regular Purdy thing. I think it's because freaking Baker Mayfield put up 32 last week against Detroit at Detroit. Detroit's defense has been atrocious versus the pass, and they've been really good against the run. So it's like these games lead to a certain type of script where you score via the throw.
Yeah. You know how Sam Darnold was seeing ghosts though at some point?
You think he's seeing ghosts out there, Purdy?
I think Purdy is going to walk away from this game seeing ghosts of Aiden Hutchinson for the rest of his life.
Yeah. And NorCal, there's some math to this. Burns is the math man. Right, let me put myself in the no one needs to see me. Burns is the math man. So when you and NorCal Mike he's got it right here in terms of paying down. So the thought here is Purdy doesn't actually outscore, and I actually put that same statement for Mahomes or Goff. They don't necessarily have to outscore Lamar, which they could, by the way. Lamar has a high range of outcomes too. Let's not get crazy. But in this game, it should be a high scoring because he's up against Mahomes. That's the reason why I think Lamar is almost by far the best play, because the games where Lamar doesn't score well have been games where either they've been up against a shitty team that can't produce offense and the team can shut it down for a big chunk of the game. And then, but when Lamar's out there doing his thing, he's putting up fantasy points. He puts up numbers because of his style of play. So, but sometimes he gets an 18 if you look at his history, and those are games where it's like against the Jets or some shitty team that can't score. And so the Ravens will just kind of shut it down, and then one of these other guys would have to pop up. So Burns, the math here is this: Lamar coming in at 7,700 on DraftKings. It's $1,400 savings off of these other quarterbacks. If the number's close and that 13 to 1,400 allows you something somewhere else, then that's the difference maker that will get you there.
Yeah, that's about the extent of it. I mean, that's really your reason why you wouldn't play Lamar's for that savings, right? Everybody else is in the 6K range, and 6K quarterbacks are actually the most valuable piece of your lineup in terms of a salary construction. That would be the only reason why Lamar would be a guy that I wouldn't use as much this week. I mean, I was really high on him last week. He didn't put up the points to keep Lamar where Lamar needed to keep going and going and going and going. They didn't give a shit. Like, they had to win this game, and they put on a statement because of it. John Harbaugh didn't care. He's like, you're gonna put the foot to the floor pedal, and that's it, man. Like, and that's why he scored 39 points. It was like it was Lamar had to put up a performance to win that game, and they kept it close. I mean, Houston kept it close for the first half, with a touchdown that they got on the punt return. But in all actuality, the game really wasn't even close. But I knew Lamar had to do Lamar things to make this work. And, he did it, and he basically did it himself. So I like him this week. I think they got to put the pedal to the floor again. I mean, Mahomes and Kelsey's the guy, on the opposite side of the ball. He's got to get it done again this week. If he doesn't get it done, they don't win. Like, I don't care what Kelsey does or what Mahomes does. If Kelsey's not a part of that equation, they don't win this game whatsoever.
100%.
It has to be Mahomes and Kelsey. Rice is a secondary piece to have in your stacks with Mahomes. I think Mahomes is a good play. I don't think he's the best play on the board. I think he ends up in around about 25, 27 points. That's about where he's going to end up. If he extends that and he goes to 30, then that's nuts, man. That's great. But Lamar, he's got to be 35 to 40 points again this week. That's
I like
where
what
he's
you
going
just
to pay
said.
off.
I would say if you're playing Mahomes, you could probably lock button Kelsey into that lineup. Like, that is a lockable pair. You could just hit the lock button every, your rule, at least Mahomes, at least one of Kelsey. They're together. Not Kelsey with Mahomes. Mahomes with Kelsey, every lineup.
Agreed. And to that point, that's one of the reasons I balk at Brock Purdy's ownership, because to me, Brock Purdy is not getting to the nuts without Debo or Ayuk. And those two guys are so much more expensive than either of Lamar's stacks. It almost cancels out the discount that you get by playing Brock Purdy. Not to mention, Christian McCaffrey is going to be in those lineups anyway, and he's a potential vulture from Purdy. So, yeah, the price difference just isn't enough for me this week for Purdy. Another
scenario, and somebody mentioned it here in the chat, and I think it is it's very relevant, is if Lamar's not getting it done, it's probably because like Gus Edwards or Justice Hill are scoring.
Gustus, yep.
Yeah, Gustus Hill, one of those guys is putting a touchdown, maybe two. They're probably getting 2 touchdowns along the way. Bobby, wow, I pretty much remember years ago when you won a a milli on a week when everybody played Lamar chalk, and you loaded up on Mark Ingram, and he put 3 touchdowns on the board that week. That leverage was pretty intense. Now, Gus Edwards is kind of like a Mark Ingram out there.
He is, but we saw something even more interesting last week, which was Justice Hill getting significantly more touches than him.
Yeah.
So that's the other part of the equation.
There are some interesting things going on in the running back position. Tan Guy is talking about Joe Thuney being out. He's a guard for the Ravens, so maybe that harms
for the Chiefs.
Yeah, maybe that I'm sorry, the Chiefs. So, maybe that harms the Chiefs' chances of, I don't know.
Harms their running game.
It really doesn't do them any favors.
That's where the impact's going to be.
Yeah, it's
is
not
the run game.
I don't normally like to react too much to, quite honestly, injuries to guards and stuff like that. But it's noteworthy, especially against a team like the Ravens. All right, let's jump over and talk about these running backs, because running back is going to be incredibly tricky. And I think one of the ways to make it less tricky is just to lock button Christian McCaffrey. I did that last week. It worked out just fine. But it is also noteworthy that the Lions were really, really good against the run this year. I don't know that matters against Christian McCaffrey, but that is just noteworthy. Do you guys think that it's acceptable if I'm running 150 or 300 to just lock button CM Sizzles on a slate where all of the running backs kind of, nobody's getting me too excited?
Yeah, certainly. It's certainly something you can consider. I mean, I don't know that it's as for sure as it was last week for me.
Interesting.
You guys really talked me into it. You talked me into it last week, and you were so right on that. This week just feels a little bit different. We've got a larger price gap between him and the rest of the guys. He's $2,500 that's significant. And I do think there are scenarios where like Pacheco and Gibbs put up solid enough scores to beat that price differential. Even a guy like Montgomery on a crazy week. So I don't know. I think it's still like to me it's 80% you should lock them, but 20% I'm skeptical versus like 100 last week. But I think there's a couple more ways that he doesn't sneak into the nuts this week.
Burns, I'm going to repeat what I said last week, which in terms of that lock, which was keeping in mind that anytime you're in a tournament, this is really important because I don't like this running back group outside of McCaffrey. Keeping them in mind, in-game injuries happen at a 15 to 20% clip, guys.
Yeah.
And there is a reasonable, I know, Kevin, you always say this. I know you always say it, but I'm going to say it again. When you have a guy who's going to be 70+% owned, and that's what I think it'll get to, 77%, some range like that. So basically, Christian McCaffrey is competing with Amon-Ra St. Brown for that expensive guy on this slate. I'm fucking putting CMC over Amon-Ra almost every time. And it's not even a good matchup, Burns, but like there is he tweaks the knee, but something happens. He comes out of the game. Last week, we were all a little nervous after the first half. He wasn't doing much. I'm like, oh shit, my all-in call on McCaffrey, like it was so unexciting of an all-in, and now it's going to burn us. And then of course, he came through very nicely in the second half, but he'd get hurt. There's game theory to it.
Yeah, he's not my all-in call. I'm not all in on him. I may be significantly underweight on CMC this week. Where I'm going to probably potentially lock button is Jahmyr Gibbs this week. I think he's just in a great matchup. I think he can actually do really good things against the San Francisco 49ers defense. So that's where my ownership's going to be. I'm going to be really heavy on Jahmyr Gibbs this week. I'm going to be lower. I was all in on Christian McCaffrey. I had him in every lineup, whether it was single entry, 3 max, 20 max, 150. I was all in on him. I didn't have any lineup without Christian McCaffrey last week. But I will say this, it is a far difficult more difficult matchup than going up against Green Bay. He is in the only way Christian McCaffrey gets to 30 plus points in this game is if it's an all out onslaught through the air. He cannot get it done on the ground. They're not going to be able to get it done on the ground in this game. This game is a very difficult game for San Francisco on the ground. Detroit has shut down multiple top-end running backs this year, and he's going to be the next one that they shut down on the ground. The guys that I'm all over in this game is Ayuk and Kittle. Those are my all-ins on this game. I may even lock button both of them, especially with Deebo Samuel being back.
Dude,
yeah.
Hold up. There are bold calls flying out here. An Ayuk all in with Deebo playing.
Yep.
That is
I'm gonna be probably in and around 75 to 100% of Ayuk. Probably really close to it on Kittle as well. I think this is a Kittle game. And I really think it's a Ayuk game. I think Ayuk stretches this defense even to the point where they can't keep up. And he has multiple touchdowns in this game. And I think it's all over the middle with Kittle. And I think Deebo is going to be your decoy guy this week. And they're going to try to just decoy him and save him for the Super Bowl where he can actually come out and destroy. But, this is where I'm going with all my lineups. And I'll probably have a trifecta with Kittle, Ayuk, and Gibbs in most of my lineups.
I mean, you can't play Kittle and Ayuk together without Purdy, though. Doesn't that have to include the Brock Lobster?
No, not all the times.
Interesting.
That's where you get different.
All right. Listen, that's some bold call. I like the boldness of it. Yeah, I mean, you put Bobby into a sweat. That was something right there. I like there we go. So
here's the thing for me, Geek. How much does McCaffrey have to score to be the nuts? It's not 30, right?
That is the thing. It's in the 20s. He, my initial figuring was he has to outscore Amon-Ra. If you look at it that way, so let's say like a 25-ish point score / it depends a little bit on what the other running backs do, but it's highly dependent on Amon-Ra. And I'll add in the other wide receivers that are expensive. There's not that many elite plays. When you look at this in the all formats salary, it's McCaffrey and Amon-Ra. And then it's a massive drop in salary. Like he's not competing with these other guys. He's competing at the top end here with Amon-Ra or a scenario where Lamar Jackson fails us and a cheaper wide receiver. Like the math just doesn't work. There's only so many combinations you can do, especially when you look at the players in little tranches of like 7K guy, 5,500, 6,500 guy. There's only a few of them. You can't, and you can only afford so many of them.
Again this week in consideration. Yeah, I'm interested to see lineup construction at the end too. I think that's going to play into it a lot.
Yeah,
but we very well may end up at a point where all McCaffrey has to do is outscore the guys below him, even with that big difference. So we'll see what salaries look like.
It is hard for Christian McCaffrey not to get there if they're throwing to him a little bit. I know the Lions have a good run defense, but again, Burns, I would caution that defensive metrics, they only matter so much.
I get that. And I just know that this defense is this is the best defense against the run and on the entire 2-game slate. They will just destroy you. Like they are really freaking good against the run. And I know the metrics show that maybe Kansas City is up there too, but this is a really freaking good defense. And I don't want to go full bore with Christian McCaffrey like I did last week. I need to have salary. I need to have salary across the entire lineup. And he doesn't present that for me. He presents a lot of salary constraints where I have to use multiple 3K guys. And I don't want to do that this week. I want a more like stable lineup where I have multiple 6K guys in the wide receivers and multiple 6K guys in the running backs potentially or at tight end. So,
well, let's talk about the rest
You
of
got
these.
my attention, Bernsey. That's for sure.
Yeah, it's really interesting. But the math does work out that way. Like I said, you play Christian McCaffrey, you're effectively locking in 2 or 3 super turds in your lineup. And by super turds, I mean like in the 3s or 2s in the salary range. You cannot do it really any other way. I like I said, I spent a lot of time on the video I did yesterday, kind of going through. It was a little unusual style of a video because of a 2-game slate and the way it worked. And I really wanted to just kind of emphasize the math of it and how interesting it is. And I actually did come up with a unique player, I think, in that lineup that I think no one's going to be on. So I'll talk about that when we get to it. But the rest of these running backs, we got Pacheco, great. Missing the guard, got the Q tag, but you throw those things out. Pacheco has been really nice lately, really good play. And Baltimore's a team you want to attack via the run. I love Pacheco. He is, for me, the correct second highest owned guy on the slate. I like that. Burns, you just talked about McCaffrey and going up against that Lions nasty run defense. The other nasty run defense has been San Francisco, especially at home. They've almost equaled the Lions in terms of yards below expectation to opposing running backs. And one of my concerns with Jahmyr Gibbs, I do have a mild concern, is that the team does tend to yank him off the field in situations where they need a pass blocker. He is, Montgomery is the better pass protector. So I do have some concerns that with a nasty pass rush coming from the 49ers, if that's what happens, that we might get a few fewer snaps to Gibbs than what we normally like to see. Does that concern you at all? Being that you're going to be super high on Gibbs, I agree with you that like the best path to a big score for the running back on Detroit is via the pass, but there is I have a little concern of his time on the field with the whole, Monty being a little better at pass protecting.
yeah, I mean, that's always the concern, right? But if I'm that high on him, I'm going to have lineups with both him and Montgomery in them. It's just the way it's going to filter through with the domination station. And I don't mind having both of them together. I actually kind of like it a lot because
Interesting.
you get Gibbs through the air. Say he gets 7 or 8 catches through the air out of the backfield, and then you have the touchdowns coming via Montgomery. Whereas, like, if you just have McCaffrey and you get 25 out of McCaffrey, but if I'm getting 20 out of McGibbs and potentially 18 out of, Montgomery, I'm already in the green versus just having McCaffrey and somebody else.
Fascinating. BobbyWow, looking through this sort of group of running backs for tomorrow, we have our obvious plays up top with McCaffrey, and I would say, give me your order of preference. McCaffrey, like, do the ownerships coincide with how you see it going down? Let's put it that way.
I think so. I think I'm pretty much fall in line with that. To me, Montgomery has maybe a chance to surprise a little bit here. So Burnsy talking about having both in the same lineup. If you're playing like a deep tournament, looking for something in one, MME, that's kind of intriguing to me. I think Montgomery, he's been getting on the field more. He's the more trusted guy. Like you mentioned, he's a pass blocker. He's a guy that we've seen, I don't want to say matchup proof because it's David Montgomery at the end of the day, but he's a guy that runs hard enough to be relevant in a game like this. So I do think he's maybe a little more intriguing to me than to the field, but overall, yeah, my interest falls in line with this ownership.
I feel like I'm more interested in Montgomery than Gus Edwards.
1,000%.
Yeah, they're about the same price and the same ownership. Whoa. No one said anything about not liking CMC plus Gibbs. I think they're a good combination.
And that's the highest ceiling combo on the slate by far.
Yeah. So I listen, I am still on team. I'm probably going to have most of my lineups with McCaffrey, to be very clear. The order for me is McCaffrey, Pacheco, Gibbs in that order. I think that Montgomery is really interesting at 5,500 though. I think it's a really interesting spot because I also think that Montgomery can probably get there at 5,500 with a score in the 14 points range. We don't need 3x. And this is another thing I want everybody to understand when you're looking at a 2-game slate. And this is something that you're going to need to drill into your mind space. These tournaments are won with 3x salary, not 4x. So what that means from a player perspective, like you're looking at about 150 fantasy points to the tournament winner, maybe 160, whereas in a giant tournament, it might be 250, right? So what does that mean? It means Pacheco at 6,500, we're looking for like a 20, right? For Montgomery at 5,500, I'm looking for about a 15 out of him. I don't need a 25. So for that reason, I think Montgomery can get to 15, and Gus Edwards too. He can get there. Justice Hill could probably get there.
I agree.
I like Justice Hill quite a bit.
Montgomery is the most intriguing to me. I think he'll be 15 to 20% ownership at most. And he's a guy that 10 of the last 11 weeks, he scored double-digit fantasy points. 11 of the last 11 weeks, double-digit touches. This guy's getting touches. He gets into the goal line. He's trusted. I just think there's so many reasons for Montgomery to be a little bit of a spoiler in tournaments. But Justice Hill too. Yeah, let's talk about that because he saw a massive jump in touches last week.
This is what I want to talk about. Listen, at 4,800, Justice Hill catching passes, Justice Hill getting more touches than Edwards. Forget Dalvin Cook. He came in the game late. That was some bullshit. That was some end of the game, blowout run. I don't think Dalvin Cook was getting mixed in at all from what I saw until that game was way out of control. Like, did I miss something, right? Dalvin Cook is nah. But Justice Hill catching passes, doing everything, and a more dynamic player than Gus Edwards. Give me Justice Hill at 4,800. I think it's a very interesting pivot off of you gotta do something different. You're not gonna win by just doing what everybody's doing. So you get how about a crazy Justice Hill David Montgomery combination that wins you the tournament this week? Some weird shit. Get weird.
Yep.
Even
in the flex. I think even one of those guys in the flex, could be the path there as well. But yeah, I agree. I feel like the running back position is what's going to get weird. It has the best chance of getting weird in tournaments this week.
Get a little crazy out there. So yeah, I think running back's gonna be super interesting. I do like Justice Hill quite a bit. I like the favored running back. That's my problem with Pacheco in a little bit, but I think that game is so close it doesn't matter. But yes, saving that salary from Pacheco down to Hill and that 1,600. Now you're talking. I don't need that second turd in the lineup. That's how you can avoid, the third, super cheap guy that you're forced to. There's a knucklehead in the chat here. Delete the comments. Get out of there, you knucklehead. Anyway, so
saw those.
Like a knucklehead in there. We don't get too many of those here, but what are you gonna do? So anyway, getting back into actually I want to go. We're gonna jump over to wide receiver. All right, this is covered. I'll throw one more strategy thing at you guys. Is there any interest at all in just like playing Elijah Mitchell as a injury hedge against McCaffrey?
Not for me.
Not at all. Okay.
Because not only does McCaffrey have to go out, but Elijah Mitchell has to come in and put up numbers against a top 3 run defense in the league.
I'm going to mention
it there with Justice Hill, $300 more.
I'm going to mention it just in case it happens so that I can say I mentioned it. All right. Now we're gonna, I gotta mention it.
That's the grossest thing you've ever mentioned.
I wanted to show something real quick before we jump over to wide receiver, guys. We've got a props team. So part of DFS Army, we have the Proptimizer tool, and we cover games on Prize Picks and Sleeper app and these pick'em games, and we track everything that's done on that thing. So I know a lot of DFS Army VIPs are in here watching this and thinking, hey, what am I doing after the NFL season happens? Well, guys, I'm just going to show you this tracker and what Sniper, Will Lynn, and the props team have done since September. We started tracking every single ticket. When I say we track every ticket, there's a fucking screenshot here. You don't believe it. You click it. Boom. Wait, where is it? Yep. Every ticket is tracked, right? You ready for this? Year to date, that's just this month alone, right? It's January. 14,000 entered, 17,001, up $3,300 on $20 tickets. Since September, these guys are up $12,933. Again, most of the tickets you could see here are $10 to $25 tickets. if you are in DFS Army and you are not tailing Will in and Sniper, I don't know what the fuck you're doing. This is a really fun way to play those pick'em games. Super sharp guys sharing their tickets, and it's right here. It's all tracked. The numbers are right there. So these plays are all dropped in the DFS Army VIP Discord in the player props official props picks channel that we have. So make sure you guys are checking this out. You should be following along with these guys all throughout the season. Hey, you missed it. Doesn't matter. They're still there. They're kicking ass. So make sure you check out the pick'em games. Again, it's Prize Pick, Sleeper, Underdog are the primaries that we cover. And these are dropped in the DFS Army Discord. VIPs have access to it. The VIP is all access DFS Army. We also have a props only subscription, which you can check out. So I wanted to mention that. Realistically, Sniper and Will were in my DM saying, don't forget to mention that. We've been kicking ass. Let people know. So get in there. Now I fulfilled my responsibility.
It's
all
true,
right.
Though. They are on fire.
They're killing it. You just got to follow those guys. They dropped the ticket. Every single one of those track plays, there's an image right there. These are real. These are real plays, and they're up huge. That's real dollars. And it's by the way, that subscription is $35 a month. If you hit $35 subscription and you're up 13 grand in the last 4 months, 13 grand.
It's crazy.
Yeah, we're not to this point yet, Blitz, but I'm going to give you a spoiler alert. It is double tight end week again. So spoiler alert. How many times have we back tested 2-game slates and it's been fucking 2 tight end guys? Come on. We know this, and especially this week. So yeah, you got to get in on the double tight end. All right, let's talk a little bit of wide receiver. Now, let's make the screen a little bigger so we can see it. We see some ownerships showing. I think now we're going to have a change now that Debo's Q tag has been removed. So let's start there. No Q tag on Debo. That means his ownership is going to go up. I think Ayuk's going to come down a little bit. But you see here, you got Amon-Ra at 40%. Debo, Ayuk. So Ayuk burns all in at 43%. Rashee Rice disappointed last week. So now his ownership's going to come down a little bit. I love switching back to him, even though just because of that reason. I like coming off, kind of the stud coming off the done situation we've got going on there. Amon-Ra getting peppered with targets in the playoffs. 14 targets last week. I don't see any way he goes through this game under 10 targets. It's like, does not happen. And then, so you have this stud zone right here. Now, let's just talk about this group, and then we'll work our way down from there. To me, these 4, far and away, are the best 4. It's not even close. And I'm including Zay Flowers in the not even close category.
Wow. Okay.
That's right. Not the same. Zay Flowers, not that good against man coverage, BobbyWow. Really has not been very good at all. And the Chiefs play man coverage at like a top 5 rate in the league. True. So it's not been his thing. He's been actually terrible. Now, that doesn't mean past performance isn't indicative of future results, but that's just what it's been. So I'm not going to include him. So of this group, Burns, I know you love Ayuk. Mm-hmm. And you're going to treat Debo, you're saying, as a bit of a decoy.
Yep.
Once you're playing, you got to play 2 of these guys. Who's your second guy?
Out of these top 4?
Yeah, you have to play 2.
Well, how I'm constructing a lineup right now, it would be Rashee Rice, simply because of salary constraints. But, it's also a Mahomes lineup. So I'm doubling him up with Kelsey and Rashee Rice. But
Bobby, do you have two preferences here?
For me, it's Amon-Ra is far and away the top dog, and then probably drop it down to Rashee Rice.
Going Amon-Ra Rice. And I think the duo from San Francisco is more of a you never know duo to me. I almost like Kittle better than all of them.
This whole 4?
No. Amon-Ra is far and away the best play here.
Yeah, I agree. Kittle's my favorite pass catcher, excluding McCaffrey on the 49ers for sure.
And with Rice, to me, I like Rice almost more as an alternate play, just over the fact that I think everybody's going to flock to Kelsey, after last week's game, I think rightfully flocked to Kelce, but nonetheless, everybody will flock there, which will leave Rice a little bit lower on the ownership scale, maybe than some of the other guys.
I mean, you got to have a lot of Amon-Ra. I mean, he's just, he's
14 targets last week. Who else is getting 14 targets? Yeah. You don't have 14 target type guys here. Debo and Ayuk are not generally going to cross 8 or 9 targets no matter what. That's just not the style of football that San Francisco plays. They don't throw the ball that many times.
This is the type of slate where I'm at the point where I'm saying, I don't care how ugly it gets beyond this. I am essentially locking CMC and Amon-Ra because they are so far and away the top 2 plays to me above anybody else. That's kind of where I'm at.
I will tell you that when you put those 2 guys in there, you're playing a lot of 5 and 4K names and 3K.
Ugly.
Yeah.
But look at the price range here. The 5th, 6th wide receiver downs below 5K. I mean, and tight ends. Everyone but Kelsey's 5K.
Yeah.
It's doable.
It's doable, but in order to make it work, we've got to play a few of these turds. So this is, I think, where the money's going to be made, just like it was last week. Last week, it wasn't about figuring out that big studly guys or studly names were going to do well. We knew that. The key was picking the right cheap player to bring it all together, right? There was a bunch of them. The field loaded up on Reynolds and Jameson Williams didn't actually, it wasn't that great. They were okay, but not great. Yep. So I think this is the area where you have to make your money. But Zay Flowers, for me, listen, he's fine, but the setup doesn't set up that well for him. He's been much, much better, like I said, in his zone, facing the zone than man coverage. I don't know how much that matters, but it just is a thing. So what you will find, though, is that you do wind up in the Zay Flowers price point quite a bit. Like that $5,800 level does show up a lot. And again, there's a giant gap between him and Rice, the next guy up, and Jennings, the next guy. I mean, this is a big gap. 6,500. That's a 2K gap with Zay Flowers sitting in the middle of it, and that will force Flowers in if you leave that wide receiver spot open. But in the flex, you have a bunch of tight ends that suit that price point that I think are all better plays. Let me show you something here, guys, and I want your opinions on this. Zay Flowers, 5,800, right? Sam Laporta or Zay Flowers, BobbyWow?
Yeah, Sammy, every time. Remember last week, take what the slate gives you. Here we are again.
George Kittle or Zay Flowers?
Oh, I'm playing Kittle all day long.
I already knew that.
Yeah.
So,
and I'd play Mark Andrews over him too. So
there you go.
Agreed.
And Kelsey. So that's the whole thing about this slate. That's why double tight end is super in effect here, guys.
We talked about last week. Travis Kelce and Gus Edwards were the same freaking price.
Yeah. You're playing Gus over fucking Travis Kelce. Did I not scream this?
Come on.
What did we say in the show last week? If you're playing fantasy football with your friends and you're looking at your flex spot and you have a choice of Kelce or Gus Edwards, you aren't sitting there thinking about it. You didn't think for even 10 seconds. You're like, no, what do you mean Gus Edwards? He's some bench turd. I'm playing Kelce. You never thought twice about it. Put your mindset on your fantasy football season long team. It's already gone. You ain't in no fucking, if you were in the NFFC championships, you don't even have to worry about that. The owners of the contest are fucking changing it all around anyway. You ain't winning that. Like how I worked that in. You guys are aware of the controversy that's going on? Yeah. Yep. I needed to work it in at some point.
You've been working a lot. You've been working a lot and very flawlessly.
This is years of doing this. I was, I'm back on my game. It's like when I see you two, brings me back in my game. And I felt like I was a little.
The color comes back.
Yeah. I've missed you guys this week.
Here's the thing with Zay Flowers. If you go back and look at his stats since week 1, he has not put up a tournament winning score without scoring a touchdown. He has not scored more than 13 fantasy points without also scoring a touchdown. Put a little same game parlay on Zay Flowers touchdown and 50+ receiving yards and hedge with that, and then be comfortable without playing Zay Flowers in daily fantasy. Yeah. That to me that's what I'm going to be doing because like you said, matchup on top of that. Fully agree with you.
And by the way, the Flowers ownership reflects the matchup to the point where it's not that big of a deal. Like, this is nothing that special. He's going to be 23%. That is a low ownership on the slate for a WR1 for any team. So it's the expectation is reflected in the ownership projection. So it effectively allows you to own 20%. That's an acceptable amount. But honestly, like, you don't want to go. This isn't a scenario where I'm like, I'm playing a lot of Lamar, so give me 50%. Zay, I just don't think it's necessary. And we literally saw Lamar nuts last week with unstacked, which is bananas.
That's why I think Zay will come in over-owned. I do think that number climbs just because people are going to think, oh, Lamar, this is a cheap stack. I'm throwing him in. So I don't know. But yeah, you're right. 23%. It's not
Guys,
that much.
the money is going to be made here picking the correct names from this pool of players. Okay? A bunch of turds. They all stink. And yet,
I want to hear who your name is. You said you had a name that people are.
I do. It's a tight end, though. It's yeah. You know, I'm rolling with the 25 hundo tight end. That's what.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, it's not. It's less exciting when you find out it's a tight end. So, listen, Mecole Hardman fucked me last week. I had a lot of exposure to him, and instead of a touchdown, he got me a -1 on a fumble out of the end zone.
I have to hear you talk about how Noah Gray is going to take up your tight end 2 slot.
Yeah.
Oh my lord.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, that's right.
All right. Well, let's find some wide receivers down here.
Get me some wide receivers here. So I'm just going to go through some of the names, and I weirdly like. You know who played ahead of Odell Beckham last week? Nelson Aguilar.
Yeah. Thought you were going there.
Nelson Aguilar, quite good against man coverage. You know, it's his specialty. What are you going to do? Nelson Aguilar, 3,800. Fairly low.
He's in the MVS Mecole Hardman family tree of deep play guys that can't catch the football. But he did last week.
It is what it is. Well, which one can catch? Justin Watson? That motherfucker drops everything too. These are tough spots. Jameson Williams, what he's doing? He's dropping passes.
You know what would be funny? If Kadarius Tony is the guy that ends up scoring a touchdown, 10 fantasy points to win the Millie this week. Could you see that happening?
Sure. Yeah, he's healthy. I mean, he stinks. It's more likely that he fumbles away something and the other team scores.
Could be worse than Mecole Hardman.
These guys all are terrible. I mean, these choices, one is worse than the next. And it's amazing that we have to make a choice. Jawan Jennings, egregiously overpriced at 4,600 with a healthy Samuel.
Yeah.
But, yeah, that's true. But, yeah.
Criminally overpriced. But, you know, you got to... All right, whatever. Right? Like, you play. Josh Reynolds. I kind of like Reynolds. I'm fine with that one. You know, whatever. Go right back to it. But at 30% ownership, I don't like it. Like, that was the reason why Reynolds was a bad play last week. Like, a fucking turd at 35% ownership is a bad turd.
What do you guys think about Bateman?
He stinks.
I know he stinks. I'm just trying to come up with one of those turds that actually does something. Like Nelson Aguilar last week.
He's got speed. He could make a big play.
Which one?
Rashad Bateman.
I don't know.
They're all the same. I think there's all these guys to me are the exact same person in a lot of ways.
So hard to differentiate. It really is difficult to differentiate here. Dare I say? Well, is the Wiz Khalifa coming back?
No, I think he's ruled out.
Oh, he's out. Oh yeah, no! I thought he was going to play.
It's on DraftKings. He's ruled out.
Yeah.
No.
OBJ is another one that is criminally overpriced for his usage. Like, listen,
I was thinking the same thing on Cleve.
It would have been nice if the Wiz was back, or like one of Ray, maybe like a Ray, but no, he's not going to be in the game now with Deebo Samuel healthy.
So tell me this. If you had to pick a guy, let's say, Jawan Jennings and below, who would like surprise and shock the world, who could put up a decent score, a good score, who would be the one guy if you had to choose one?
I'm leaning Aguilar.
Okay. What about you, Burns?
I mean, that's kind of what I was debating on. Like, the top two value guys is what? It's Reynolds, and then it goes to Reynolds, and then it's Aguilar. No,
it's Jameson Williams that comes up second. When
and
when
then
you're
it's
just
and then
sorting
it goes
by
Rashad Bateman, right? And then it's
fantasy
Bateman.
points per dollar, Bateman is
Mhm.
third. But yes,
And
it would
that's
be
kind of why I'm leaning towards him a little bit more than Aguilar this week. I mean, Aguilar is going to probably see a little bit more. Yeah, I'm surprised he's higher in ownership than Bateman, or Bateman's higher in ownership than Aguilar. But
yeah.
I don't know. It's weird because all these guys more likely than not are going to probably fail. Right?
These are somebody's getting a touchdown from this group. Listen,
Yeah.
Let's put it like this. Every single one of these players is probably only projecting for 2 targets this week.
Yeah.
And that's what you're dealing with. Kadarius Toney, 2 targets sounds about right if he plays. Justin Watson, probably going to get 2 targets. Marquez Valdez-Scantling, he was on the field, got some targets last week, but the dude needs 5 targets to catch 2. Like, he is always going to drop half of the passes his way. He's terrible.
Marquez looked good though. He had a catch last week.
He did, but
him and Aguilar, what the heck happened? Those guys are transformed.
So brutal. So
MVS is interesting.
The best advice we can give is, like, if you're mass multi-entering, mix it up and hope that you guess right here, or maybe tie in whichever QB. Like, if you're playing Lamar, fuck it, go for Aguilar or Bateman. And if you're playing, Purdy, YOLO, throw. Actually, no, with Purdy, I don't like these cheap guys. But if you're, if you're not playing Lamar, I guess, throw one of these other types, like a Marquez Valdez. Like, if you're playing Mahomes, I won't have a lot of Mahomes, but if I was playing him, I'll throw in a Valdez-Scantling or a Watson or a Toney. It's ugly.
It's easy for me because I've been riding the Titanic with Jameson Williams. That we've already hit the iceberg. It's the doors have already failed. The canoes are failing, but it's potentially the last week I get to play him and have him score me a really bad score. So I'm riding with Jamo Williams until the season ends.
That's what I like. I love that. Do you have a second guy, or is that your prime guy, BobbyWow?
I think to me it's Jameson. Kadarius Toney, it's silly for the Millie, is a guy that I'm interested in, along with MVS. I just think there's something intriguing about those two guys.
If I had a reason for Toney, it's because the Tony song is so fun. And if he actually scores, I do throw the music on, I sing it, it feels good, and I do a whole dance thing, and maybe I'll do it, in some form of like a video, a TikTok.
There you go. That
video.
Put me over the edge.
I may have done a TikTok to that at some point. Can we point out that the Blitz is back to all caps lock, and I just want to mention that for a total side note. Yelling in the chat.
All the way back.
Where's Wonder Woman? Get her in here to uncaps lock that keyboard. Okay. Let's talk about the tight end position, guys. And I love these tight ends, man. The tight ends are good. Got a nice group here. I'm trying to get double tight ends in there. You cannot play 2 expensive tight ends. And I want to talk about the Likely thing too. I think actually Likely is not as dead as everybody thinks. But the tight end group, every single tight end here is better than, to me, the best play at their salary level. Kelsey is better than the $6,600 wide receivers. There are no $5,500. Like, give me Laporta over Zay Flowers all day. Give me George Kittle over Zay/Odell Beckham all day. The only problem that I have with it, and I'd love to play 2 of the 5K guys, I don't even know how to make that work salary-wise. The only way you can make that work salary-wise is you have to have 2 of those shitty wide receivers that we just referred to that are not very likely to get more than 1 target in the game. So I don't know how to make it work. But if I could, I would be on that. So with that being said, I also want to mention that Noah Gray at 2,500 allows you to do things with your lineup that you simply cannot do without a $2,500 guy. Noah Gray has been averaging 3 or 4 targets per game. That is not a great number, but tight ends get more targets in the style of game that is against the Ravens with a nasty pass rush. All I'm saying here Noah Gray does not need to do much at all to be in the nuts. He's competing with Mecole Hardman and all those shitty guys that we just talked about that can't catch a pass, like Martez Valdez-Scantling, Tony. If Noah Gray catches a miracle touchdown, you are in a very, very low number of lineups. And now it's not that low at 13% projected, but at least it's a particularly low group of lineups that have any chance of winning the big tournament. So that is my soliloquy on Noah Gray. I know who he is. I know he's the backup tight end, but we only need a 4 or 5. And when you have the $2,500 guy in there, it makes your lineups look really, really different. No, I'm not a Ertz. Ertz, no.
I was going to ask.
No, I can't buy. He's on the practice squad. He's not actually on the main team yet. We got to play Ertz? No. Maybe. I don't think so. So with that being said, Burns, you gun to the head. You got to choose Kelsey, Laporta, Kittle. You said you like Mark Andrews, which is crazy.
Yep.
Maybe so.
I like everyone to Isaiah Likely, even though I'm getting some James Mitchell lineups when I just run the domination station with nothing in there. But do it that whatever. But I created a lineup, like hand building a lineup, and it's the exact same lineup without looking at the domination station that the domination station spit out for me.
It gave you
number one.
Lineup number one. Your handcraft is the Dom Station optimal. Let's see what that is. Is that a Purdy lineup?
No, it's actually it was Mahomes lineup. And it went
did you lock QB with wide receiver?
No, I just locked in. I locked in Montgomery and Hill. And let it flow. I just wanted to see how those lineups would look by locking those two guys in, and they actually look very intriguing because I think everybody and their mother is going to lock in CMC this week, and they're going to have 2 or 3 3K guys, and you're going to see a lot of those 3K guys as wide receivers that are going to falter, and it's just a matter of hitting the right one. But it's hard. I mean, those guys are hard to hit week in and week out. I'd rather take my shots at double tight end of Kelsey Laporta, double tight end of Kelsey Kittle, with like a Rashee Rice and Ayuk, because that's how I'm going to go a lot of my lineups.
So here's why it switched out Gray for Mitchell. So I am looking at the optimal, and it is interesting that the optimal went to Noah Gray. So it's just something I did in the first look that it just made sense for me, just the way that the math was coming together on the salaries. Mm-hmm. And I'm seeing here that the optimizer on its own is choosing that. And even like I said in the second one, the only swap it made from lineup 1 to lineup 2 was going from 3.01 Noah Gray to 2.82 Mitchell, meaning this is just trying to make another lineup with a similar approach.
Yeah. I would say the order of tight ends, I like Laporta a good deal this week. I think he's in a really good spot. But Kelsey's my number 1, Kittle's like number 2, and those are like 1A, 1B really close together. I like Laporta as my overall number 3 guy, and then I'll fill it in with Andrews and Likely right behind them. Yeah.
And by the way, the ownership projections agree, and I think I'm going to end up with a weirdly massive amount of Noah Gray, not because oh my God, Noah Gray is awesome. I know it's going to happen for me because of the way that the lineups, the math is working out on these, where I need that $2,500 guy. But BobbyWow, what do you think here on the tight end position? So Burns probably be a little higher on Kittle, second to Kelsey, and then Laporta and Andrews and Likely mixed in.
Yeah, I love Sam Laporta this week again. I think, we saw a bump for him last week. He's going to be target early and often for the Lions. He's a stud, man. I really like Laporta at that price. I think Andrews is interesting as well. I think he deserves more than 17% worth of exposure. 5K. I think he was ready to come back just about ready to come back last week. People were raving about what he looked like in practice. we know what he can do at 5K. So ultimately, Laporta, Kelsey, and then probably Andrews for me round out my top 3.
That's right. The whole reason Ertz was on that team is it Mitchell was on IR or the other dude?
One of them.
Brock Wright was on IR.
I'm not as upset about the Noah Gray thing anymore. I was appalled at first.
Well, you got to understand. My call isn't like, oh my gosh, I have a secret knowledge that
right.
Noah Gray's going to score a touchdown. It's just that like he needs 4 receptions. Look at what Noah Gray has done. He's getting 3 or 4 targets most weeks. And
does a 4 from him get it done? That's the question, and it could.
Yeah, well, that's the score you're looking at, a 4.6. Like this is what. Do not expect more than like, or the crazy great game where he gets like a 9.
7.
There's your 10. He did it.
Kelsey wasn't in that game, was he?
I don't know. I don't remember. The 7s, the 6s, but he's getting 3 to 4 targets a lot of weeks. That's really what I was coming down to. 3 or 4 targets, fine. Give me 3-4 points. That's all I need at that price. Unless Mecole Hardman gets in the end zone on that end around, and that 3K guy gets a 9 or a 10. Tony could do it again.
That, and someone in the chat brought it up. I think that's the big thing for me is you miss out on that double tight end. That's the bigger issue.
I don't like that part of it either. It's bothering me because I love these tight ends more than the wide receivers. So what do you do? And I think there's that other scenario where if you don't use Christian McCaffrey and you're willing to use a Justice Hill, you can flip the script a little bit on the math of the lineup as well. I actually kind of want to go to it. Let's go to building lineups, guys. We're an hour in.
This is where the QB thing comes into play that we talked about earlier. This is why Jared Goff and Patrick Mahomes could make more sense than we think, because I think that's actually the spot where you could get the biggest leverage and make the biggest difference salary-wise from Lamar. But yeah, let's build. I
have a hard time with Pat Mahomes, and I'm going to tell you why.
I know why. Goff for me. I mean, Goff's my top guy this week. Again. Okay. I like Goff a lot.
All right, and you loved Baker last week, so hey, props, right? I feel like you did. Were you
not as much?
No. Who was on? Did you like Goff also last week? In that case, not so much props.
Yeah, exactly.
He did not do very well.
Exactly.
All right. So let's just see what it looks like. I don't love Goff because I like it. I like Lamar. Let me keep it real. I like Lamar. I want to play him.
Who doesn't?
I'm really interested in what this lineup looks like. So, if we build it chalk, it doesn't matter if this name is Pacheco or Gibbs. Same price. That's your chalk start. Defense, I think you just go cheap.
I like the Lions defense against Brock Purdy. He looked flustered. I think you don't need a lot out of him.
Lions. I like that. Cool. Let's go all the way down to Lions. Love that. Right. So, reminder, of course, to my DFS Army people and everybody who's watching this, really, do not allow the defensive choice to affect the players in your lineup. I get that question way too often on Twitter, on Slack, on wherever, on the Discord. You do not have to worry about that. If you're like, hey, I can't play Lions and have yes, you can. Do not allow the defense choice to affect your offensive player selections. Don't even worry about it. Don't even worry about it. And yeah, we did have a great Tony game. I think earlier. That was the first quarter of the season.
I think it was a showdown. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So you start your lineup. We got Lamar. We got Pacheco, McCaffrey. Lamar does not need to be stacked at all. So this start, I just been picking my favorite plays. Burns, you love Ayuk.
Yep.
I don't mind any of these guys, right? I don't have much of a preference here. Ayuk, even Debo, cool. But Amon-Ra is the chalk. So I'm going to go up top here because I want to show how the numbers come together. We're down to 4K per spot. This is where it gets crazy. So let's start with what you need to do. At 4K left, this means I'm forced to play 2 super cheap guys at bare minimum in the salary. Now let's go with Kadarius Toney. Wait, he's got a Q tag. What's his deal? Is this even legit? Full.
I mean, he hasn't played.
What? He went back to questionable. This guy is the worst. I actually think Mecole Hardman is today's Kadarius Toney, to be honest with you. I think the real Kadarius Toney is Mecole Hardman. That's actually what's going on here.
I don't even know what that means.
In other words, the guy who can get the end around for the touchdown, one reception, but gets it done. It's probably more Hardman than it is Toney. I feel like maybe they've like the fact that this guy got a fucking Q tag back on him right now is pissing me off. That's all I'm saying.
Andy Reid's gonna poison Hardman's food to make sure he doesn't get a touch in this game. I don't know that Hardman's getting that end around.
You think it's over for Hardman? All right. All right, let's just throw in 3K random guy. Whatever. It doesn't
MVS.
matter.
Throw in MVS.
Yeah, let's throw in MVS. Just as terrible as anybody, right?
Today's
MVS,
Hardman.
4,300 left. Now, again, what do we know? If we want the double tight end that are good, we need to have almost 6K left. I'm not getting there. And this is the math I want to talk about. Yeah, the Kadarius Toney thing when he lined up off stage, that was so egregious. I forgot about that. That you should never. I think Kadarius Toney's done. I think he might be done. Like, I don't want to talk too much about him. I'm not NorCal Mike. I am not signing off. Where is it? I'm not signing off on the Toney play. I'd rather
you can't. You can't.
I'm going to go with Jameson Williams, BobbyWow special.
Yes,
instead.
There we go. Give me JMO.
Let's put him in. But look what happens here. We're at 4,600 remaining, and what does this tell you? Now I can play Odell Beckham and fucking I don't know, Isaiah Likely. I don't like that, right? So I can play one decent tight end here, George Kittle, and now once again I'm back in the Turdley zone. Not cool, right? Aguilar. And look, Aguilar, Jameson, and Scantling all in the same lineup.
Gross.
That is horrific. So what does it tell you? No, it tells you cannot do this. So where do the adjustments come from? Check this out. Pacheco for Hill. Okay. Now I created 1,800. Now I can double tight end it with good players. I can get Sam Laporta in there. So that one change, now I can get a Kittle Laporta combination here. Still have 2 turds, but not 3. And Justice Hill. Did I say Jameson Hill? Justice Hill, not too bad. Like, okay, could you not see? I could see Justice Hill.
Can we just pause though for a second? Like, the wide receivers are so bad that they have you saying Justice Hill, not too bad on a 2-gamer.
That's why I'm not locking in Christian McCaffrey this week.
Lord have mercy.
It's really hard to build lineups without having a really crappy wide receiver or 2 more towards the 2 spot.
Or
because here's the other problem. If Justice Hill is putting up a decent score, let's say 14 or 15, that takes away from Lamar too.
Could take away a little bit from Lamar. So, but the other one is Amon-Ra. So how do I get to the point now where I can get rid of a second turd? And that's where I wanted to go with this next part of it. So now we say, all right. And again, I prefer Lamar. I think he's the highest scoring QB on the slate.
Of course.
But I'm going to go down to Brock Purdy in this one. Sorry, Bobby. Wow.
That's okay.
I'm going down to Brock Purdy in it. Actually, with Amon-Ra, I think you could. I think I can make this acceptable with Goff because I know you like Goff. So we've got Goff. We've got in this one. This one has Amon-Ra and Laporta. So now I'm jumping down to Goff. That still doesn't get me. That move alone doesn't get me another stud in this lineup. The 1,600 actually only all that really. I don't even think it gets me up to. Yeah. So there we go. The $1,600 that I just saved with that swap gets me back to a quality running back. And actually, I kind of like this lineup on screen here.
Good lineup, right?
Yeah, this one's looking pretty good. Goff, Gibbs, St. Brown, McCaffrey still in there with George Kittle, Laporta. This is a nice looking lineup right here. Actually, I don't know what contest I have on screen, but screenshot.
But this is proven Burns' point here. This is why Burns. It makes sense why you are not locking McCaffrey in. Totally makes sense.
I'd rather lock in St. Brown this week than McCaffrey. If I had to lock a player in, it would be him.
You'd rather lock St. Brown against
because you're getting the best wide receiver.
I mean, Christian McCaffrey is clearly the best running back.
I get that too, but look at his salary. So you're 1,100 less.
Let's see what it looks like if you just put Pacheco and Gibbs in there. Let's go back to Lamar. So I go best quarterback. medium running backs. I've only saved 1,100, so this does not change much here at these 2 wide receiver spots at all. Actually, doesn't change anything. I can't that swap. So I'd have to go down. Let's see if I now continue that through with Pacheco, and it's 2,434. So let's take him out. 5,800 really didn't give me a ton of a mild upgrade, but not huge. It's not a huge upgrade.
It said David Montgomery, Justice Hill, a running back combo for all the monies.
Oh, my goodness. Like that's really what you have to do here. I mean, you got to go down to Montgomery, or you could do Justice Hill as well. So
I mean, both those guys. Yeah, look at that.
And now I get
now you get Lamar back in.
Yeah, so now I can get Lamar, and I could probably I can get a quality second. There's Ayuk in there. There we go.
It's the way to go, man. It's just about the salary constraints, you know, that CMC just crushes. We had more games on the slate when we locked him in last week, right? We had more games. You know, we had
more turds to choose from that looked pretty good, and you knew some of those turds were going to come through.
Of tight ends that were lower salary, like we had Likely and we had Kincaid, and it was just a better slate to lock in CMC. Is all I'm saying.
All right,
so we had better wide receivers too.
Let's talk about some takeaways. All right, we've talked through the slate. We've showed a lot of different things on screen here, and in terms of how the math works out. So let's talk about some takeaways before we head out here. Some takeaways. Obviously, what we're seeing on screen is just like not playing guys because they're not that good. That's not how this is going to work at all. It's the numbers and how they come together and how the lineup comes together. If you don't play McCaffrey in a lineup, it opens up a lot. But when you do, you only have so many other pathways to go by. We've talked about a few. We talked about a version where you play the Noah Gray. You just take the 2 or 3 points at tight end, and that $2,500 spot allows you a second tight end who's good, and all of that. If we play the 2 good tight ends, you almost have to come off. It's just no way to do it with Lamar and Amon-Ra and all those other studs in there. It doesn't work. It doesn't work at all. So I think there's going to have to be a little creativity. What are your takeaways here, Burns?
With what takeaways? With what?
Just in general, we've gone through some of the math of how the lineups fit together. You know, McCaffrey. You talked about early. I don't need to play McCaffrey, not because I don't like him, although it's a tough matchup, but rather because when you play the 9K guy, you're forced to play 2 3K guys. And if the second guy does shit, how many more points does McCaffrey have to score in order to make up for the fact that you couldn't get a second decent player in your lineup?
Right. How I'm going to play, I'm capping McCaffrey. I'm going to be way under the field. I mean, I think he goes 75, 80% this week, maybe slightly lower. So I'm going to be around 35, 40% McCaffrey. I mean, that's a fade. You know, that's basically a fade on him. So in those lineups, you know, they're going to look a lot like everybody else's in that 75% range. They're going to have two wide receivers that are probably 3K-ish to 4K with Reynolds. I already looked at most of them. They're going to be about the same, and they're going to have Noah Gray in them. So Noah Gray is probably going to be owned. He's going to be owned because of how the optimizers work and the math works with the algorithm to filter it through. You know, I really, really think that this slate is not one in the Millie Maker with McCaffrey as the guy. I do not think McCaffrey is in the winning Millie Maker lineup this week. I think you're going to see 2 6K guys, or you're going to see Montgomery and somebody else in there. I think you're going to see multiple salaried wide receivers, one that's going to be a high 6K guy, and one that's probably going to be like an Amon-Ra. And then your tight ends, they're going to be 2 5K or like Kelsey and another 5K guy, and they're going to filter through their defenses. Like, don't worry about defenses this week. No, there's not one defense that's better than any of the others. It just let them filter through at the way that the domination station is going to allow it to happen. I really don't think this is a Christian McCaffrey slate. I think just the way the salaries, and this is why I'm not going 100% in on him, is because of the salaries and how the salaries are working through with the domination station. The domination station in and of itself is just going to give you 90% McCaffrey. You don't have to do anything to get it. But I'm going to limit them, and I just think that this is how the slate's going to work. It's just the math of this of the $60,000 of the $60,000 or the $50,000 on DraftKings, and how it is sectioned per each position. So, and it makes it harder one.
Yeah, I guess kudos to DraftKings for keeping that salary high enough to really make you have to think about it. BobbyWow, what about you? Final thoughts on this slate and your super sneaky BobbyWow plays, of course.
Yeah, I think, Burnsy's got a great point with the McCaffrey ownership. I think definitely reasons not to lock him and even be a little under the field. So I think that fully makes sense to me. I think some of my pivot guys, some swing guys for me that I'm going to try and get over the field on, David Montgomery and Justice Hill on the running back side. I think one of those guys ends up in the nuts. Jameson Williams and MVS, as gross as that sounds, on the wide receiver side, especially JMO. I think Jameson, again, big play guy. We need somebody in that range that can put up, 10 points with one catch. I think MVS and JMO can do that. That's what I'm looking for on this slate. And death taxes and Travis Kelce putting up points in the playoffs. It just happens. I don't care how bad Mahomes is playing. I don't care how bad the Chiefs are playing. I don't care who they're playing against. Travis Kelce scores touchdowns, makes catches, and puts up yards in the playoffs. So don't sleep on Kelce. It's so easy to get overweight on him on a slate like this where he's just way too cheap.
Travis Kelce doesn't want to become the anti-hero here. He needs to score. He needs to be the hero. Anti-hero? Taylor Swift reference?
Really?
No.
I missed it. No.
Oh my God.
Who am I? You're so on your game. I should have known. Gosh darn it.
Who should I use in my flex? Laporta. Mr. Ray's like, I'm not going to watch the whole thing. Just let me know who to throw in the flex. I say Kittle. I don't know. No, that's good stuff, guys. Listen, I want to shout out to everybody out there. We appreciate you being with us for Tournament Tactics all season long. Of course, Burns and BobbyWow, of course, and this is our second year of doing this as a regular featured show here on the DFS Army channel. So I love it. We appreciate everybody being with us. Of course, we'll have a showdown breakdown for the Super Bowl coming up in a couple of weeks. So again, make sure you don't disappear. I know we all fall asleep and get into our patterns, and then we forget. But there is a big Super Bowl, of course, coming up in a bit. And, we have the breakdowns for these individual showdowns for DFS Army subscribers on DFS Army website. So make sure to check those out as well. And like I said, stick around, DFS Army. We've got NASCAR coming up. I think it starts next week, maybe. So NASCAR is my favorite. I'd say MMA and NASCAR are by far my favorite non-NFL sports. I like the once a weeks. I like to put the research in. I'm not as excited. I like them more than I like the dailies. Personally, that's how I like to do it. But so make sure we stick around for that. For my DFS Army subscribers as well, I'll be back tomorrow. We'll do a little Dom Station setup for this. I did effectively what was an impromptu players club last night. I don't have any more to add really in putting lineups together for this 2-game slate, but we can show a little bit of how to set up the optimizer for that. Maybe some tiers contests, shit like that. So stick around tomorrow, get your Blue Moons ready. And there we go. He's going to the race. Love that. I love the first race at Daytona. I've won the Daytona tournament a couple times. So that's my favorite one, that first NASCAR tournament of the season. So we'll get that going. Good luck this weekend, everybody. We appreciate you being with us all season long. Like, subscribe, and and good luck this weekend, everyone.